Guitar intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes, this time focusing in on the A minor scale, which could also be called the Aeolian mode, circling around, measuring from the A note, which is located third string down on fret number 7. This is part number 1. Remember, in part of our objective here, get all of our resources orientated in the same direction to make them as easy on the eyes from the perspective of the player of the guitar who is located behind the guitar. Therefore, for example, my guitar will look like I'm left-handed, but really we just flipped it around to mirror what you're doing from the perspective of behind your guitar. And when we are behind the guitar, we got the fretboard on the left-hand side, the low or heavy string, the one closest to the ceiling up top, left to right towards the body of the guitar. Similarly with our worksheet, this is representing our fretboard, this representing the top string on the guitar, the low or heavy E string, the one closest to the ceiling, top to bottom, left to right, represented as though we took the guitar and just simply imprinted the strings on the screen. We're now looking at the interval for the Aeolian mode, which is going to be the main minor scale. So this is the big one. This is the one that we want to know well, possibly second only to the major scale in terms of how well, because we want to be able to compare the other minor modes to the main minor, which is the Aeolian mode, otherwise known as the minor scale. And we're going to be rotating around this A note. So that'll be our focal point, and then we'll measure our intervals around it. Let's do a quick recap though so we can get the context of it and try to cram as much information in our mind as we go through our practice routines as possible. So we started up top with the idea of we're going to be in the major scale. The related major scale is the C major scale. We're looking at this position here, which you might call position 1. You might call it a G-shaped C major position if you're looking at it from a cage standpoint. If I was to start on this A note and do the 5-note pentatonic, it would sound like this. If I was going to do a 7-note or minor scale, if I start on A, it would sound like that. Now again, that's one of the first kind of shapes people learn. They might not always learn it here on fret 5. You might learn it over here on the E or on whatever, or people might move that around as one of the first things that they kind of know how to move that basic shape around. But what we want to do is use those same notes over the whole fretboard, which means we're basically in, you can think of it, the key of C major, but the same notes are in all of the other modes, including the related minor or Aeolian mode, the 6th mode related to the major scale. And so that's going to be an A minor for us. So A minor, very common key to play in on the guitar, in part because you've got this nice open A here, which is very nice as well. So we're going to be looking at that mode. Now when we do our shapes, remember that you can remember your shapes by just trying to memorize each of the shapes. And as you do that, I would suspect that we want to learn the shape and then also be able to realize that that shape is covering multiple modes. That's the easiest way to do it. So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to memorize 150 different scale shapes as though they're not related at all, that's craziness. Why would you do that unless you're just practicing some tremendous feat of memory, when the reality is that they are all related? Your purpose, the goal here is to try to see how they're all linked together, how they have kind of a fractal relationship together, and the more ways that you can link them, the better you know it. That's the definition to me of how well do you know the stuff. How many different ways can you basically look at it would be the general idea. So if I know this shape, I can see it not only as, the A minor or C major, but all of the related modes would be the general idea. We can also learn the scales by counting up what we call the formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and so on, which you usually learn from the C scale. That's a little bit more difficult to do on the guitar, although a worthwhile practice, and one we might, focus in more on later. In part difficult on the guitar though, because you have to go not in a linear progression, but from string to string. I don't really want to know the pattern just on one string. I want to be able to move the pattern down. And a lot of people don't really understand, the distance when they start moving down strings, which is something we want to learn, because if we do understand that, it's a lot easier to do this stuff. And then we can also do it by basically intervals, meaning we're going to be measuring around a particular note in the scale. So in this case, we're going to be measuring around the A note. The shape that we're going to create is the same, but if we measure it from A as the focal point as opposed to C as the focal point, we will come up with a different bunch of intervals to create the same shape. And that's really useful because that helps us with our chord constructions. That helps us to build the shape anywhere we want to basically build the shape. So that's the general idea. So we started with the Ionian or major scale. Now we're looking at the Aeolian. Now the Aeolian is the sixth of the related major scale. We often in Western music use the major scale as our key. So I'm going to use absolute numbering system for the modes. Ionian or major scale number 1, Dorian number 2, Phrygian number 3, Lydian number 4, Mixolydian number 5, Aeolian number 6, and Locrian number 7. If you can see the Roman numerals, that will also help us to determine if it's a major mode or minor mode, but we often learn it just in terms of with relation to the major scale. We know that the 1-4-5, if you think about a standard blues progression, if you're playing in major, the 1-4-5 are the majors, and then the 2-3-6, if you play a minor blues, are the minors, or if you can convert to the minor scale, in case it would be the 1-4-5 related to the Aeolian, but we'll see that in a second here. But that's going to be the idea. So we want to learn first the major scale in terms of intervals, and then the minor scale typically, because that's the second most useful. And then all other modes we can compare to these two main modes, the main major and the main minor. So the Dorian and the Phrygian we can compare to the Aeolian, and they will only have one interval difference. And then we can compare the Lydian and the Mixolydian to the Ionian or major scale, and they will only have one interval difference. And then the Locrian is a weird one. It's kind of like the minor with a flat 5, which we might spend some time on itself in future presentations. So that's the general idea. So let's compare the major to the main minor here. So the major intervals are a 0 note away perfect first, 2 note away major second, 4 note away major third, 5 note away perfect fourth. Now remember, the perfects are typically going to be the same for the main major scale and the main minor Aeolian. And the 7 note away perfect fifth is also going to be the same for the minor scale, the 9 note away major 6, and the 11 note away major 7. Therefore, what would we expect to happen on the main minor? You would expect the perfects to remain the same and all of the majors to convert to minors. How do we convert from a major to a minor? We drop it down a step. We flatten it, you could say, terminology wise. Now we do that for everyone except for the main minor, the minor second. So the minor second for the main minor, which is the minor scale, the sixth mode, Aeolian mode, as it relates to the major scale, for some reason still has a 2 note away major second. That's kind of funny because there is a minor scale where you do flatten all the majors to the minor, and we call that the Phrygian mode. So for some reason, the Phrygian mode is not the main minor. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I'm guessing that it was possibly because people liked the Aeolian minor scale better than the Phrygian, therefore it's like the second most popular, not exactly the opposite scale of the major scale. Or it might be that the Aeolian is actually, if I compare the other two modes to it, the Aeolian works well because there's only one difference in terms of the intervals between the Dorian and the Phrygian and the Aeolian. Whereas if I used the Phrygian, then it might turn out that when I compare the Dorian and Aeolian to the Phrygian, I might have to do two changes to the interval differences. So maybe that's why it is, but whatever, it is what it is. So we have to remember that we're just going to take all of these intervals, make all the majors minors by flattening the distance 1/2 step, except for the second, which remains the same for the main minor, the Aeolian the minor scale. Let's go down to that minor scale. So here we have it. So now we've just saying, I'm still going to call it absolute number 6 mode, Aeolian mode, or the minor scale is the 6th of the related major scale, which was an A in our case, is the related minor to the C major. And so now we've made it the 1. So if we look at our intervals then, we've got a perfect first, because obviously it is what it is. And then we have that 2 note away major second, this 2 representing the second position now, this 2 representing the distance, which is 2 notes. We have a 3 note away minor third, as we would expect, because it was a 4 note away major third on the main major scale. And now on the main minor, the Aeolian, the minor scale, it's a minor third, which means that it's 3 notes away instead of 4. And then we have a 5 note away perfect fourth. So the fourth is the 4th position. 5 notes away is the distance. It's the same as it was in the main major. That's what we would expect because it's perfect. And then we have the perfect fifth, 7 note away perfect fifth. Fifth representing the 5th position. 7 is the total distance in half steps or notes. And then we have the 6th, which is a minor 6th, 8 note away minor 6th, which is what we would expect because the major has a 9 note away major 6th, and we flatten it to an 8 note away minor 6th. And then we have the 7th, which is going to be a 10 note away minor 7th, which is what we would expect because the main major had an 11 note away major 7th, and we flatten it to a 10 note away minor 7. So that's how we want. So notice there's quite a few differences, but they're somewhat predictable because we can just flatten the major intervals to the minor. And once again, once we understand the major scale and the minor scale, all of the other modes are pretty easy because all I have to do is figure out one interval difference between the main major and the main minor. In other words, once I know these intervals, then I can convert to the Dorian and Phrygian pretty easily because the Dorian and Phrygian are only going to have one interval difference from the main minor Aeolian or minor scale, which is nice. So that allows me then also to maneuver from possibly this shape. Like if I want to maneuver out of this shape and say, how can I then visualize another shape? Well, you could move the whole shape up like you're thinking of it as a spreadsheet because it's a spreadsheet and you can just move everything, all the relative positions move up. That's difficult to finger. So I'm not saying I'm not even saying that I'm practicing too here. I'm not saying that I can just, I see the shape here. I'll just shift the whole thing up in my mind. Your muscle memory doesn't work that way, even though copying and pasting it in an Excel worksheet does work that way. So me as an accountant, conceptually, that makes perfect sense. I can copy and paste it and see exactly what is happening. Can I get my fingers to memorize that this position is the same as this position if I move it down? That's a lot more difficult, but it's a lot easier to do if you realize that the shape is moving instead of just trying to remember a whole nother scale shape as though it's not related at all is kind of part of the point. But where was I going with this? I was going with the idea that you could also do it by saying, well, what if I just look at the Dorian here, which is just the same shape, and I just try to center around the D, and then I want to go from the Dorian to a D minor. Well, then if I know that there's only one interval difference between the Dorian and the main minor, then I can just target that one note that's going to be different, the one interval difference between the Dorian and the minor, and then I can visualize my same shape in essence, but just then tweak that one interval. That's just another way that you might pick up seeing it where you can kind of work on the same thing. Or the Phrygian is going to have one interval difference. That's the one that has the one note away minor second. So if I know E Phrygian, because I'm used to playing in A minor or C major, and therefore if I just target the E, that I'm in E Phrygian, and then I'm like, well, I want to go from E Phrygian possibly to E minor, because it's a minor mode, that should be a pretty easy change. There's only one interval difference. I just say, well, that second has a flat second. I'm going to make it a 2 note away major second, and I can see the same shape and then just target that note and push it out out 1, and then I can kind of visualize the shape that way. Now, once you start doing that, you'll start saying, hey, look, the shape is a different shape just by pushing out that 1 note. And then you can start memorizing the shape. And then, of course, you can go from there and say, well, now that I'm in the D or like the E minor, what are the related modes, all the other 6 related modes to that E minor? And what are the 6 related modes to the D minor? So that's just one way that you can kind of expand. All right. So that makes perfect, hopefully that makes sense. So now we're going to be on the A. So we'll start on the first one and just count out our intervals. So let's first just look at the octaves. So if I go up a string, where is the octave? Now, usually when I go up a string, I have to look for the inverse distance, but obviously there is no real inverse distance. If you think of it as a circle, we're going around in a circle of the 12-note circle. If it doesn't matter if I go one way around the circle or the other way around the circle, it's still the same distance, right? So for the octave. So it's going to be, I would call it like -5 and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 or 12. So if I count that up this way, I'm going to say from here to here, I would call it -5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Wait a sec. From here, no, I'm on the wrong string. I'm up here. I was on the G string. What am I doing? I don't know. -5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Boom, boom. So that should be not even an octave, but basically the same note. But I'm just going to think of it. I'm not going to really get into the octaves other than just to say we're finding the same notes on every string right now. And then we're going to look for the same intervals on every string as though we're thinking about a circle on the guitar as opposed to octaves. Okay, so that means that if I go up 1 string, the octave is always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward unless I cross the fault line. The only time I would cross the fault line is if I was on this B string, in which case I can see this A right here, for ejemplo, and then that would be going up to here. So now because this fault line, this tectonic plate pushed to the right, making the distance lesser. So, if I go down 1 string, the octave will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the G string, in which case if I go down 1 string, the octave will only be 4 frets back. Next one. What happens if I go up 2 strings? If I go up 2 strings, then I'm looking for a 12-note distance. So it's going to be 5, -5, -10, -9, -11, -12. So this shape, let's count it out this way before I talk about it. -5, -10, 10, -11, -12. Now that shape from top to bottom, a lot of people learn that as kind of one of the first octave shapes they learn. But we would like to be able to see it, of course, if I'm pivoting around this A and moving up to that string as well. Okay, let's go down a string and see what happens. Let's see what happens. Try it out and see. Oh, wait a sec. Let me do my thing here. So if I go up 2 strings, then the octave is always going to be 2 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which could happen on the B or the E string. So let's say we have this A, for example, and we go up 2 strings, then because this whole tectonic plate shifted to the right, and now I'm leaning backwards, it's going to be a further distance. Therefore, if I go up 2 strings, the octave is always going to be 2 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen if I start from the B or the E strings, the 2 bottom strings, in which case if I go up 2 strings, the octave is going to be 3 frets back. That's how it works, people. That's how it works. Okay, and then if I go down 1 string, what if I go down 1 string? I'm looking for a 12-note distance. It's going to be -5, or I'm just going to call it 5 here, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So it's kind of interesting. If you go up, then it's 5 frets this way. If I go down, it's 5 frets back. So let's count it out this way. So I'm going to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Boom. Shock alaka. So if I go down 1 string, the octave is going to be 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen if I was on the G string. And if I was on the G string, what would happen. I'll tell you what would happen if I was on the G string. Then this whole tectonic plate would shift to the right, and it would make it a shorter distance. So if I go down 1 string, then the octave is going to be 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which is only going to happen on the G string, in which case if I go down 1 string, the octave is going to be 4 frets back in that instance. Let's do another one. Octaves, por favor. Down, that's another one, please. Gracias. Puedes tener otro. Thank you. May I have another? I'm going to go. I don't know if that was right. That's what I feel like that's what I was going for, though. So now I'm going to say this is going to be a 12-note distance, 5, 10, 11, 12. Just count that out here. So we're going to say 5 and then 10, 11, 12. Boom. Oh, wait a sec. 5, 10, 11. Here, my finger's in the wrong. What in the world? There we go. What was wrong with my fingers? Fingers not working right. So that means if I go down 2 strings and cross the fault line, which is the fault line is right between these two because this tectonic plate shifted to the right, or maybe from the perspective of this tectonic plate, they're like, dude, we stayed still and this tectonic plate moved to the left. It's like we were not the one that did the moving. Just because we're the smaller plate, you just because you're the bigger plate doesn't mean that you can't move. I feel like you're the one that moved and I'm the one that's been sitting here the whole time, just like the political landscape right now. It's like, I don't care what you're talking about. I've been sitting in the same spot the whole dang time, and the tectonic plates have been moving all around, and it's like, what in the world is happening here? I'm just sitting here like anchored into my spot. I know what I'm talking about. Hasn't changed a bit. But all of a sudden these tectonic plates are moving all around. Anyway. Guess it depends on your perspective, but that means if I go down 2 strings, then the octave is, and cross the fault line, the octave is 1, 2, 3 frets forward. What if I didn't cross the fault line, which would happen on either the E or the A string? Let's go to the A string, and if I go down 2 strings, then it's going to be here. Let's count that out. So let's just think about it. If I go down 2 strings, then the octave is going to be 2 fret forward, which is going to be one of the shapes I think people know the octave best in. But if I go down 2 strings and cross the fault line, then the octave is going to be 3 fret forward, because I'm still going to blame the smaller plate. I'm sorry. I feel like the small plate shifted to the right more than the big plate shifted to the left, although it could have happened the other way. That's just the way I'm going to visualize it, though. Hopefully that's not offensive or anything. And then let's go to the bottom string. So then it's going to be bottom string, 12-note distance for the octave. It's going to be 5, crossing the fault line 10, and then down to 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's count it out this way. So we're going to say 5, crossing the fault line 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so then you can also do that by going up. So you might say, why don't I go up? It would be easier. Maybe you can see that shape. If I just see that shape, well, then I know it's going to be the same down here. If I can't see the shape, then I can count it out. And I don't need to look for the inverse distance because it's 12, whichever way we go around the circle. So 5, 10, 11, 12, same note down here. So if I go down 3 strings then and cross the fault line, the octave is going to be 2 frets back. What if I don't cross the fault line? That would happen if I was on the top string, for example. So if I'm on the top string, so the general rule, if I go down 3 strings and don't cross the fault line, then the octave is going to be 1, 2, 3 frets back. But that actually happens lesser amount of the time. If I go down 3 strings and do cross the fault line, which would happen on the E or the A, and I couldn't go down 3 strings if I went to the D, or, you know, if I went down to any of these. Then if I go down 3 strings and do cross the fault line, the octave is only going to be 2 frets back. Okay, so let's go down to the next one. But before we do, I got to do my jokes here. Then this is a bad one, and it has some not really profanity because I cleaned it up, but kind of. So if you want to skip it, you can. But I have to go over it here. So here we go. People in my home can be awfully rude. Awfully rude sometimes, I'm telling you. It's ridiculous. Just the other day, I heard yelling in my house, somebody saying, "You stupid, like, effing idiot," which will replace with, you know, "You stupid humping idiot," let's say, you know? And it's like, hey, that's awfully harsh. Honestly, calling somebody a stupid idiot, that's bad enough. But to do so while they're humping? I mean, it's just rude. It's rude, you know? I mean, especially since everybody looks like a stupid idiot when they're humping. I mean, can't you wait till they're doing something else before you berate them like that? I mean, possibly calling them like a stupid video game playing idiot or something like that. I feel like that would at least be a step up. Honestly, it's just common humping courtesy, for crying out loud. It's common humping courtesy. It's crazy. That was horrible. It was not horrible. That was a good joke right there. Not even Jerry Seinfeld could make a joke that good, even if he worked on it like for a decade, dang it. I'm telling you, the skills that I've been developing in my joke practice has been pretty impressive. The improvement levels have been outstanding. I think everyone can agree with this. I'm going to then go to the next one down. All right, so we're going to the second. So we're looking for the 2-note away major second. Now, because this is on the second note in the scale, and for chord constructions, we skip every other note. It goes from the 1 to the 3 to the 5 to the 7, which represents the last note in the scale, and then we go around the horn to which we call the 9, but it's going to be equivalent to the 2 for our purposes, although you could think of it should be an octave up. I'm not getting into octaves. Not getting into that with you right now, man. It's just going to be a 2. Why don't you want to get into it? Because I know it too well. That's why. And anyway, we're going to go then to, so that's going to be it. So then we'll say 2-note away right here. That's going to be it. Let's do that. All right, so if we're starting on the A, we go 2 notes away on the same string. We're right there. Boom, boom, going to the B. There's the sound we're looking for. All right, what if I go up a string? If I go up a string, it's going to be back here. And if I go up a string, I have to look for the inverse distance. So if I'm looking for a 2-note away minor second or major second, the inverse of that would be 12 minus 2 or 10 notes away. So let's count that out. It would be 5 going up to here, and then I'll call it -5, -6, -7, 8, 9, and 10. Let's count it out on the guitar here. -5, -6, 7, 8, 9, 10, boom, boom. And so I can go dun, dun. So top to bottom would be a 10-note away minor 7. But if I go from the A to the B, bottom to top, therefore, that would be a 2-note away major second or a 2-note away major ninth from a chord construction standpoint. So that means that if I go up one string, the 2-note away major second is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. And it's useful to note that that 2-note away major second is the same inverse distance, has an inverse distance of the 10-note away, because that's that minor 7, which sometimes you might be looking for that kind of, like, if you're doing like that bluesy kind of thing. So it's like that inverse distance might be useful to remember, or you might recognize that shape from this going this way as the 10-note away. Okay, in any case, so except if you cross the fault line. What happens if you cross the fault line? Well, you can only cross the fault line if you go up one string. If you're on the B string, so if I was on this A and I went up one string, crossing the fault line to this B, it would actually be a further distance because this tectonic plate moved to the right. So the rule is, if I go up one string, the 2-note away major second will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string, in which case if I go up one string, the 2 note away major second or 2 note away major ninth will be 6 frets back, which will be just out of reach typically. Okay, so let's go up 2 strings. Let's go up 2 strings. If I go up 2 strings, I look for the 2 note away major second. I have to look for the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 2 or 10, which is going to be 5, 10. So if I do it here, we're going to say it's going to be 5, 10, boom, boom. If I go top to bottom, 10 note away minor 7 from B to A. Therefore, if I go from A to B, bottom to top, 2 note away major second, 2 note away major second. So that means if I go up 2 strings, the 2 note away major second will always be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on either the bottom 2 strings, the B or the E. Let's look at this note going up 2 strings. So it's going to be shifted back 1. So if I go up 2 strings, the 2 note away major second will be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which happens on either the bottom 2 strings of the guitar, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 2 note away major second will be 1 fret back. Let's do the next one. Let's go down a fret. Let's go down a string, not a fret. Let's go down a string. Get your terminology right. Don't be confusing people. Don't get it all messed up. You got to have the right language or else your head gets all messed up. People, if you don't get the right language and define things properly, the wokesters will confuse the crap out of you until you're a confused, babbling idiot cowering in the corner saying, I don't understand anything. It's because they've deconstructed your mind, man. They've deconstructed your mind, man. They're talking nonsense. They're talking nonsense and you're just accepting the definitions of nonsense. Don't do it. It'll drive you crazy. Okay. I don't know where I went on a little tangent. So anyways, if I go down, we're going for a 2 note away now, major second. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2. So there we have it. So we're going to say this is going to be 5, 4, 3, 2. Boom, boom. So there is that one. So that means that the 2 note away major second or 2 note away major 9, if I go down 1 string, will be 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the A string here, which just fits in here. So in which case it'd only be 2 frets back. So the 2 note away major second, if I go down 1 string, the 2 note away major second or 2 note away major ninth will, if I go down 1 string, will be 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which could only happen on the G string, in which case if I go down 1 string, the 2 note away major second, which could also be called the 2 note away major ninth, will be only 2 frets back because this tectonic plate shifted to the right. Okay, so let's go down 2 strings crossing the fault line. So now I'm going down 2 strings and crossing the fault line. We're looking for a 2 note away major second, otherwise known as a 2 note away major 9. So it's going to be 5, 10, and then as I cross the fault line, 10 up here, 10. Wait a second. That's not the right note. What are you doing, dude? It's got to be it's either way back here. Let's go up here. For crying out loud. For silent sobbing's sake. Stop confusing people. You're supposed to be helping. Okay. This is gonna be 5, 10, and then 11, 12, and that's gonna be the octave. You could bring it back to 0, and then 1, 2. All right, so let's do it from here. So 5, and then 10, and then 11, 12, there's the octave, and then 1, 2 up here. So if I go down 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 2 note away major second will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets up. But I won't cross the fault line if I started on either the E or the A string. Let's look at the A string, and if I went down the 2, it would be only 1, 2, 3, 4 frets up. So if I go down 2 strings, the 2 note away major second will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets up unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on either the D or the G string, in which case if I go down 2 strings, the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets up, which makes it just barely reachable, basically. All right, let's go to the next one down. Last one that we'll do in this sequence. So if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, 2-note away major second, this would be 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, minus 1 brings us down to 2. That's where the B is. Let's do it here. 5, 10, and then 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, minus 1 brings us back to 2. So then if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 2-note away major second will be on the same fret. But if I don't cross the fault line, which would happen only on this top string, could I go down 3 strings and not cross the fault line, in which case it would be 1 fret back. So the rule would be, if I go down 3 strings, the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, will be 1 fret back unless I cross the fault line, which will actually happen most of the time, because it would happen on the A or the D string, which are the only 2 other times that I could go down 3 strings. And if I go down 3 strings and do cross the fault line, the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, will be on the same fret. So okay, we've tried to cram as much in as we can right there. Let's move on to the next one next time. Let's try a quick joke here about a song, since we're doing music stuff. It's a song joke. Sometimes the lyrics of songs are kind of ridiculous. I don't know if you've noticed this. It's like, have you heard the song? It's like, it's so easy to fall in love. It's so, and it's kind of annoying because it's like, obviously, that's why they call it falling. You know, falling is easy to do. The hard thing is not falling. Not falling is the thing that we're typically, you try to do, like when you're standing, you don't fall. It's like writing a song saying, it's so easy to slip on a banana peel, It's like, that's not helpful. Everybody knows slipping is easy to do. You're trying not to. So I could get behind a song that had lyrics more like, beware of discarded banana peels if you don't want to fall on your face or something like that. It's hard to work it into the timing, but, at least that would have some, give you a warning or something, give you some useful added information. You're just singing circular nonsense about, it's in the title. It's in the title, Falling in Love. It already has falling in it, and everybody knows that falling is easy to do. You're not, it's not edifying. Nothing is edifying these days, I'm telling you.